Hi guys, Drew back again with Princess Craft RV, and today we are going to walk through how to operate the appliances and accessories on the Palomino 8801. We're going to start right up front here. What we have underneath the cab over, first of all, is going to be your battery disconnect switch. This is going to be designed for periods of long-term storage. What this means for you is with any 12-volt system, there's going to be nominal or phantom draws on that system. What this allows you to do is go ahead and disconnect that battery from that 12-volt system again for periods of long-term storage. That way, when you go and return the unit back to service, that battery is in very close condition to where you left it. Now, if you do need to service that battery at all, whether that be on a trickle charger or something like that, since the battery on the inside is in a sealed battery box underneath the step up to the cab over, not the easiest to access, what they've done is they have kind of given you these secondary battery terminals to allow you to go ahead and again maintain that battery here from the outside. So of course, just like with any batteries, positive and negative, make sure you're hooking those up correctly in the event you are using them. We also have your 7-way plug here. What this will allow you to do is give you full function to your tow vehicle's charging system, as well as your tail lights, marker lights, things like that. On all four corners of the unit, you're going to notice these Ryco Titan jacks. This is a wireless system. This is going to be operated from a remote, and the orientation of that remote is from the rear. So we're going to get to that, of course, when we do get to the rear door. But if we take a look at the actual head of the jack here, you're going to see these little rubber plugs. If we went ahead and removed that plug, what you're going to see is a square drive here. That's going to be a 3/8 square drive. So in the event of a power loss situation, what you're going to go ahead and do is you're going to use a ratchet and a 3/8 extension. What that's going to allow you to do is manually lift these jacks to either unload or load the camper in an emergency. Moving on here, we have your water ports here. First up is going to be your freshwater tank fill. What you have there is just an orifice. You're going to take your drinking water hose, you're going to stick it right in there. You're going to fill that up until you're satisfied with the level. The popular option is going to be kind of going from this location to the monitor panel on the inside, checking and making sure that you do have a sufficient amount of water, but you want to be careful that you're not overflowing this as well. It's not designed to kind of expand that tank and then retract, things like that. Right beside there, we have your city water connection. Now, when we do talk about your city water connection, water pressure becomes very important. Generally, these units are rated for a water pressure between 50 and 75 PSI. It's very important that we do not exceed that water pressure rating. What we're going to use is going to be a water pressure regulator that's going to be included with your purchase. That water pressure regulator is going to hook directly onto the spigot side of the fixture. We're then going to take your freshwater drinking hose, which again is also included with your purchase of the unit, and we're going to make our connection here on the camper by rotating that trailer bound connection. Very easy. Again, I can't stress any more the importance of using that water pressure regulator. You're not going to want to run the unit without that pressure regulated for really any amount of time. Dropping down below here, we have your 30 amp 110 volt connection here. This is going to be your power supply. Now, this is just a cord we use here in the shop. You are going to have your own brand new cord with the unit. It may look slightly different than this, but it will connect the very same way. So if we go ahead and look here at this power supply, we have two slanted receptacles there and one L-shaped. We have the corresponding prongs there on that trailer connection. And if we just go ahead and line everything up properly, we're going to give it a 1/8 inch turn to the right. That locks it in. Then we do have a secondary collar here to screw down and lock it in further to make that connection nice and secure. Now, one thing I like about these Furon power supplies is this little light that is telling you that you have kind of full continuity in terms of power. So from the wall to here and then to the inside, you have that full continuity again of that power supply. A couple all-weather 15 amp outlets here. Of course, nothing too crazy there, just some 15 amp receptacles allow you to power any outdoor equipment here in this space. We have your cable satellite inlets here. Now this is just a pass-through connection, a standard RG6 cable fitting that will pass through to the designated TV area of the camper. Some higher-end campgrounds will provide either a park cable service or an aftermarket satellite package, or excuse me, just about every satellite provider is offering an aftermarket satellite package geared towards RVers. Either way, this is going to be the inlet of those services, and again, will feed directly to the designated TV areas of the camper. Up top here, we have your vent for your stovetop. Very important, this does have kind of an open and closed position. A couple tabs in here that are friction fit. It's very important that we open that before preparing a meal on that stovetop to allow that hot air to vent outside. And also very important that we do make sure that we do close it before going down the road to keep any road debris or weather from making its way to the inside of the camper. And again, it's just a friction fit, so when we close it, it's just as simple as pushing it closed. Taking a look down low here, making sure we're not missing anything. One thing we do have here is going to be your low point drains. Now those are going to be the lowest point in the unit's plumbing. That's how we are going to drain everything in between water source and fixture is going to be drained from this location here. So this is just a couple plugs. Now when it does come to draining the water, manufacturer recommends that anytime the unit is going to be in storage for more than 7 days, that we do go ahead and dump all of the water from the unit. In this scenario, that's going to include the freshwater holding tank and then these low point drains here. Since this does have that on-demand water heater, there's no water heater holding tank or anything like that that we need to drain. So if we drain the freshwater holding tank, if it's been in use, and then we come back and do these low point drains, that's going to ready the unit for storage. Up top here, we have your furnace vent. Now this is just an exhaust for the furnace system within the unit. Most importantly, we do not want to restrict the flow of that, so we're going to want to keep that free breathing. Make sure we're not setting anything up in front of it. Also, it is a very large intrusion point for mud daubers, flying insects, things like that. What that means for us is that we are going to want to take advantage of the aftermarket bug screens that are available to protect, again, these exhaust vents from the intrusion of those insects. That not only goes for the furnace vent, but that goes for all of the propane burning appliances within the unit. Essentially with this one, you're only looking at, of course, this here and the refrigerator vent as well. Moving on here, we have your outside shower. Nothing too crazy here. It is kind of a nice self-contained unit. You have access to hot and cold water, which is cool. This shower head will wrap around that fixture and kind of store it in that area as well. Again, nothing too crazy, but it is a very usable outside shower. Right next to that, we have your on-demand or tankless hot water system. This is a really cool setup for an endless supply of hot water. It is propane driven, and it does have an on-off switch here. So during use, this switch is going to be in the on position, of course, and you can leave that on the entire time you're camping or out with the unit, and then turn it off for storage. Now there is a display on the inside that is also going to have an on-off switch. Keep in mind that that display on the inside is that on-off switch on that display is only for the display. A couple things with this. Now we're gonna want to pay special attention that we do winterize this specifically with these copper and brass components. It is very susceptible to freeze damage. You have a couple options when it does come to winterizing these tankless systems. Number one, if you're going to be storing the unit somewhere where you have constant power for the unit, you have you're checking the propane levels at certain times, making sure you still have gas. It has a built-in safety feature that anytime that temperature within, that water temperature within falls to a certain level, it's going to kick on momentarily. What that's going to do is just heat that water just enough to keep it from freezing. That's kind of an excellent built-in safety feature for that. If you're storing the unit outside or you do not have access to use it in that capacity, it's going to be our recommendation that you go through a full winterization process, which is purging all the water from the system and then refilling it with an RV grade antifreeze, including the tankless water heater system here. That way you are fully protecting those sensitive components with that. Just about covers it with that. Most of the operation will be again there on the inside, but it is again a cool little appliance that you don't see every day when it comes to these camper units. Down below here we have your dump valves A little hard to see, but we have your standard bayonet fitting here down the center. We then have a gray valve here for gray water. That's going to be sink water, shower water, relatively cleaner of the two. And then our black water blade valve is going to be here. That's going to be toilet waste, body waste, things like that. So when it comes to using these holding water systems, it's very important that we do it the proper way. You're going to want to keep these valves in the closed position during operation. We are only going to dump as necessary or as our courtesy panel tells us to. So only dump when those tanks are either full or we are changing location. You don't want to develop the habit of kind of traveling with your wastewater. It doesn't do you any favor. So with these valves in the closed position, again, we're going to use that monitor panel on the inside. When it does come to dump, it's as simple as going ahead and, of course, hooking up our sewage hose on the end of that and then open up these valves. For the black water valve here, it is just a 6-inch pull towards us. For the gray water, it's actually a 6-inch pull towards the top. Very important also that we never have these valves in the open position at the same time. Definitely want to avoid any cross-contamination or backfeeding between the two separate systems there. And of course, the easiest way to do that is keeping them, making sure they're not open at the same time. When it does come to connect your sewage hose to this bayonet fitting or remove your cap or install your cap, keep in mind that you'll have a couple prongs along the outside of that bayonet fitting. Your sewage hose or cap will have 2 keyholes. Just put your cap or sewage hose in the halfway position, give it a quarter turn. That's going to go ahead and lock everything on and get you ready for service. So here at the rear of the unit, quite a bit going on. Of course, up top we have our marker lights. That's nothing new. Right below that we have your Thule crown awning. Now that is a power awning. You're going to be able to operate that from the inside. Now again, if you have some sort of power loss situation, you do need to manually operate that. You do have a little piece of plastic you can remove there. I do believe they give you a kind of emergency only crank handle. If for whatever reason the manufacturer did not provide that, you can always use a 10mm socket and ratchet to go ahead and manually push that in or out. Directly below that, we have your Furon backup camera kind of pre-wire setup. Now these do come pre-wired from the manufacturer, so it makes it super easy for you to go ahead and add a rear view backup camera if you're inclined to do so. Essentially a plug and play operation. You have 4 screws here on the pre-wire that you would remove, and as long as you are installing a Furon branded camera, it is essentially plug and play from that point on. Directly below that, we have your porch light. Nothing too crazy. Does have a switch here on the underside, on off, but that also has a switch on the inside so you can control it from either location. Below that, we have your standard kind of RV style assist rails going to lock in the stowed position, whether that's against the frame here or across the door. Some people like to do that. It makes them feel more secure. It's going to be a lift up on the handle, and then once it seats in that position, it's going to be locked in that outward position as well. And then again, some people like it like that, whichever you're inclined to do so. We have your rooftop ladder access here. Why that's important is because not only with this camper, but with all campers, it's very important that you develop a 90-day maintenance schedule or a 90-day inspection. What that's going to entail is, again, every 90 days you're going to inspect the unit. Anywhere where 2 pieces come together, whether that's a piece of side trim or where the ladder is or around the lights, there is a bead of sealant there. It's very important here on the body and on the roof that we do, again, inspect that sealant every 90 days. So what you're going to find here on the body is, again, a 100% silicone. Generally, you're going to find clear on this particular unit. And we're just looking for any degradation, separation, peeling, cracking, anything that would need to be addressed. We're going to go ahead and remove that bead, touch up as necessary. Now on the roof, you're going to find a different product. What you're going to find is a self-leveling sealant, whether that's going to be a Dicor or an XTRM product. Either way, you are going to go ahead and maintain those. You're looking for the same thing: separation, cracking, degradation. Generally, you're going to have to source those specific RV sealants from an RV dealer. Again, tell them what you're looking for, and they will point you in the right direction. So here at the rear of the unit, we have your wireless jack remote here. Now this again is a wireless system. This is going to be the remote. Your orientation is going to be from the rear. So when looking at the remote from this position, we have your driver side front, driver side rear jack, passenger front jack, passenger rear jack, or all at the same time. Now to get this up and running, we first have to open up the door here, and we have a little toggle switch. If we go ahead and turn that on, we make sure we see that green light, we're ready to go. From there, we can make our adjustments. Keep in mind that if we are raising all of the jacks at the same time, you have 4 independently geared motors. They're not going to move at exactly the same time, so you're not just going to want to kind of blindly raise or lower this. We'll want to make sure we are keeping an eye on it. We also want to make sure that we are never letting the front or the cab over dip down further than the rear, because of course it is front heavy. You could potentially tip it over. And also when it does come to loading and unloading, we want to make sure that we are not leaving this up in the air or those jacks fully extended for longer than it does take to go ahead and load and unload the camper. So in the event that you run out of battery here on the remote, you're going to find in your messenger bag a little 3.5 millimeter headphone jack compatible communication cord. What that's going to allow you to do is go ahead and make your connection here from the remote to the board there. And that again is not a situation that you want to run the unit long term, but in a bind it'll allow you to go ahead and load and unload the camper there. So here we have your two-way refrigerator. This is a Dometic branded refrigerator. What that means for you is it runs on 110 volt electricity as well as propane gas. So going down the road, that propane gas is going to be your cooling option. Now, of course, we have the vent removed here on the exterior of the unit, just so we can, kind of visually see what's going on, although this unit does not carry terribly too much maintenance. It's not what we would consider a customer serviceable unit, but what we're going to want to do is, first off, we're going to want to remove this panel a couple times a year, give it a visual inspection, make sure nothing's gotten in, make sure things visually still look good. Other than that, it's important to note that, again, this is an intrusion point for mud daubers, flying insects. They're attracted to the smell of propane gas. And you have some vents here or some openings that will need to be protected. So again, whether you're sourcing your screening from somewhere else or you're utilizing these store-bought options, either way, very, very important that we do protect this from the intrusion of mud daubers and flying insects. When it does come to install or remove your vent cover, it's very easy to do so. You have some tabs and slots here on the bottom of that vent. We're going to line those up, kind of swing this into position. You'll kind of have to work those keepers into their holes, and then we just go ahead and give these tabs a quarter turn. That's going to lock those on. And then also, it's my recommendation that after you've locked it on, you kind of give it a pull to make sure it is in fact locked on. These are famous for kind of blowing off going down the road. Generally, that could be avoided by just giving it a secondary pull there. So right below that, we have our propane compartment. If we go ahead and open that up, you're going to find that you have two 20-pound propane cylinders. Now, these tanks are kind of proprietary for the space here. Having them be able to operate there on their side is kind of, proprietary as well. So you're not going to be able to take advantage of any exchange programs or anything like that just because these tanks do need to stay with the unit. What's good about them is they do have gauges on each tank. That's something that you're generally not going to find in their standard capacity. Other than that, they're going to operate the same as any other propane cylinder you've ever used. So you have an open and close valve here on the top, and these are going to be secured in place with a mounting bracket and then a 9/16 bolt, the nut and bolt there. So when it does come to to refilling the tank, we're of course going to make sure we turn this service valve to the off position. We're going to disconnect our pigtail here. Once we've done so, we're going to come down here with, again, a 9/16 wrench or ratchet. We're going to undo that nut and bolt. And then from there, it's as simple as pulling this straight towards you, lifting it out of the tank, of course, taking it to getting it refilled and replacing it in the same capacity. Other than that, again, not too terribly much to speak of. One thing that you have back here is going to be an automatic switchover regulator. Maybe a little hard to see that, but we have it directionalized towards this tank here on the left. That would be, in this scenario, our primary tank. So If we went ahead and you know, depleted that tank of all its gas, it's going to automatically switch over here to this secondary tank here on the right. What that would allow us to do is then go ahead and remove our primary tank, take it to get it, you know, again, refilled, and then we can hook it back up without missing a beat there. One thing to note, when we would remove this tank to have it refilled, we'd want to reach in here and take our finger and rotate that, you know, that tab to this tank. What that's going to do is momentarily close off this pigtail, make sure that you're not having any leaks while you are going ahead and getting this serviced. So that just about covers it here on the exterior of the 8801. We're going to hop on the inside and take a look at those features. So here we are on the interior of the 8801. We're going to start with the restroom. Pretty standard when it does come to wet and dry baths as to what you're generally going to find. We of course have our pedal flush toilet here. Now when we talk about the toilet, we're going to talk about the products that we're going to want to use when it does come to making sure that black water tank stays in kind of tip-top shape. Number one, we're going to want to make sure we use only a single ply RV grade toilet paper. And then when we do, you know, go to add our toilet treatments, whether that's going to be a deodorizer or tissue dissolver, tank cleaners, any of those things are going to be introduced from the top of the toilet or directly from this location. So operation of the toilet is very simple. Of course, it is a pedal flush toilet, as previously mentioned. To fill that bowl with water, it's going to be a light press or like a half press on that pedal. And then of course for a full flush, we're going to make sure we press that all the way down to the floor. It's important to note that you'll probably want to keep some water in the toilet, especially during use or while you're out with the camper. What that's going to do is that's going to help keep kind of those bad smells down in the tank. And of course, you're not going to be kind of hit in the face with them when you do go ahead and actually flush that toilet or open up that valve. Also here in the bathroom, of course, nothing too crazy. We have a couple receptacles. We also have access to give you a little bit of storage there underneath the sink. But that's also going to give you access to your water lines and your P-traps and things like that for any maintenance or service. And then up top, our sink and kind of shower setup is very basic. You have, of course, a standard hand washing sink, but you also do have a diverter that you would pull up on that's actually going to feed water to the shower head. Now, you do have a standard RV style shower head here. What that means is you have an on-off switch there on the head. What that's going to allow you to do is go ahead and conserve water consumption. So here we have your Dometic two-way refrigerator, very easy and kind of basic to control. You of course have your eyebrow panel up top here. What you're going to find up there is two switches. So one is just a standard on-off switch. What that's going to do is that's going to set you into your last saved setting. More than often, you're going to find yourself operating this into that auto feature. What that auto feature entails is that it's going to, of course, search out a 110 volt electricity if it is available. And then if for some reason that becomes interrupted or you no longer have access to that, it's going to automatically start lighting on gas or cycling on gas. Now, if you want to go ahead and run that purposeful on gas, you're going to go ahead and depress that gas switch. From there is no real indicator that it is running on gas other than the position of the switch. Now, if you do encounter any problems when it comes to lighting that on gas, it's going to illuminate this check light. So kind of a very basic operation of this refrigerator, very user-friendly. If we go ahead and actually open up the door down here, really nothing too crazy. It's kind of a dorm style mini fridge setup. You do have an ice box, which is cool. Other than that, again, very, very basic in operation and function. So above my head here, we have kind of a very basic RV exhaust fan. What it does have is a grab handle here, which also kind of serves as a locking mechanism to keep that closed when you're going down the road. You kind of pull down towards you and then towards the rear of the unit. That's going to go ahead and open up that vent, and then of course you have a standard on-off toggle switch there. Very important to note that we do want to make extra sure that we remember to close this before going down the road. It will surely damage that vent if we forget to do so, so make sure we pull that fully closed to the closest locking position let that spring back into that slot, and you're going to be good to go. So here we have your jackknife sofa. Very easy to operate this or set it down into a secondary sleeping area. What you're going to do is you're going to lift from the bottom, and I kind of like to help with my other hand to go ahead and lay that out. And as easy as that, you do have that kind of secondary space. Now you're also going to find cup holders on each side of that sofa or sleeping area, as well as a couple USBs on each side as well. Now when we go to, of course, set it back up into the couch, very similar, same thing in reverse, but you will find that it is a whole lot easier if you do kind of help it through both positions there. Now this is, of course, going to be a sofa, it's going to be a sleeping area, but it is also going to be kind of your dinette area or your space to eat a meal. So what we have here is going to be your floor flange. And we're going to have your pedestal style table here. So you're going to do yourself a lot of favors if before you start trying to assemble this, you grab this little keeper here by hand and run that all the way out. We're then, of course, going to line everything up properly. And we're going to start tightening. You don't really need to go crazy with tightening that down. Just as long as it's snug, you're going to be just fine. We're then going to take your tabletop. And there's a little detent here, and it is just a friction fit. So that is just simple. Just set that on top until you hear a slight click. You're going to see kind of a little play in this area to allow you to kind of rotate or exit the space, but that's totally normal. Now when it comes to stowing this away, or if you want to kind of pack it away, you can of course take your tabletop and tuck that back behind this jackknife sofa to get that out of the way. And then you can go ahead and take your leg here and very easily lift this up here. And there's a nice space for that to stow under there as well. So here on the step up, we have your GFI protected outlet. Now all the receptacles in this unit are on the same circuit. What that means, if one of them were to get overloaded, they kind of all follow suit. This is going to be the central location to reset that function. So just like in your bathroom at home, you have a test and a reset button on here. If you see a light illuminated like so, that means that it has tripped. You have lost all of your receptacles, and to restore function, you just go ahead and push that button in, and it's going to go ahead and reset. Down below that, we have a very important piece of safety equipment. That's going to be our carbon monoxide or liquid propane detector, liquid propane leak detector. It is very important that we do test that every single time we take the unit out. We want to make sure that's in good working order. Functions very much like a smoke alarm, which means it has a test button. We're going to go ahead and press that button. It's going to go through a cycle of beeps and noises to let us know that it is working properly. Now this is wired into the 12-volt section of the camper, so what that means is there is no batteries to change or anything like that. So just keep that in mind. It is going to kind of be working all the time behind the scenes, whether or not you're changing the battery or not. And then below, or beside that, I should say, we have your fuse panel, breaker box, and converter. Now this is all built into one unit. Up top here, we have your 110 volt resettable breaker, same variant you're going to find in your breaker box at home. Definitely going to be labeled for function. And then below that, we have your automotive blade style fuses. Those are replaceable. So if those go burn out, you can't reset them. You're going to need to pick up a few spares from an auto parts store or our parts department here at Princess Craft. Keep them with the unit. As fate would have it, you probably will not need one unless you do not have a spare. So make sure we have a spare for each one of those in the event that you, again, need to change them when you're out there using the unit. So here we have the display for that tankless water heater system. Not too much control over the unit, but you don't really need much. So you have your on-off button here. That's going to illuminate that display, kind of turn it on. You have a button to switch between Celsius and Fahrenheit if you were inclined to do so. And then we have our temperature control here. Now, if I go ahead and turn the fixture on, we can kind of see how that operates. It's almost immediately recognizing that flow of water. What it's going to do, see, once we see that flame, it's actually going to start heating that water. We can see that temperature increase very rapidly. So really that's just going to give you kind of a real-time readout of where things are sitting within the unit. So the way to operate this, which is going to give you kind of the best end result, is you're going to kind of want to shy away from the way that you kind of typically would use your shower and your fixtures and things like that. So it's very common that you're going to turn that hot side of that plumbing on, and then generally that's going to be too hot for you, your comfort level, and you would turn that cold water mixing valve to kind of cut that heat. What that's going to do if you kind of use this on-demand system in that capacity is it can give you kind of a burst of cold water, which if you're washing dishes, that's not necessarily a huge deal, but if you're taking a shower, it may be. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set this temperature down to where this is comfortable for you, only using the hot side of the plumbing. So you're not going to want to use that cold valve at all. That's going to give you a lot better kind of reliability in terms of temperature through this appliance. So up top here we have your microwave oven. Now this is a pretty, again, basic kind of microwave oven. It's not going to really differ from any microwave that you've ever used. Again, just like with any microwave, you have your presets up top here if you choose to use them. We have your power level, timer, defrost, things like that, time and temperature down here. On the inside, you're going to, of course, utilize that standard turntable style. Again, I'm not going to focus too much on this. It's very basic, again, in operation. We have our hood, light, and vent here. Again, very much the same as what you're going to find at home or in the residential sector. So here we have our cooktop and oven. Of course, this is kind of in that stowed position, so it's very easy to go ahead and lift up that cover. It's going to fold down towards you, and it actually locks in that upward position. So when we go to close it, keep in mind that we do need to lift the whole thing up and then bring it towards us. From there, of course, you have a basic kind of three burner cooktop. It's going to operate very easily. You're going to have a piezo igniter here. So once we turn that on, we rotate that. And I'm not sure if we have the gas on this unit. Oh, there we go. So we're going to pick our temperature here and, again, rotate that until we see our fire at the actual burner. From there, we can really kind of fine-tune that, the intensity of that flame, depending on what we're making there. Oven's going to light slightly different than that. Of course, it doesn't correspond with this igniter here, so you're going to have to light that the old-fashioned way with a long stem barbecue lighter, and you are going to light it like you would any other pilot. So you have a pilot option here on the knob, and that does correspond with the button. So the only time that gas is flowing is when you go ahead and push this in. What you're going to then do is you're going to open up the door itself, and then while you are pushing in this button, you are going to go ahead and take your flame, the flame of your barbecue lighter, and you'll find two prongs down here. One is going to be a thermal coupler, and the other is going to be the propane line. And you're just going to go ahead and put your flame in between those until we see that pilot light. From there, we're going to make sure we hold this knob in for a couple seconds to allow that thermal coupler to heat up. And then from there, it'll stay lit on its own. We can go ahead and release that button, and we can then turn to our temperature that we want. So here on the wall of the kitchen, we're going to find our thermostat for the heater. So again, very easy to use. We have our comfort level here ranging from cooler to warmer. We are going to choose along that spectrum. For this scenario, we're going to turn it all the way up. We do have a thermometer here that's going to let us know the temperature within the unit. Once we've went ahead and moved this mode button here, what that's going to do is kick on that blower motor immediately. 16 seconds after that, it actually ignites. By that 30-second mark, it's going to be producing noticeable heat. So with these furnace units, these propane gas furnace units, their efficiency rating goes up as they run. So it would not surprise me within the first couple minutes of operation if this actually were to set off your smoke alarm. That's perfectly acceptable by Suburban, the Suburban manual. Again, what we're doing is we're burning off dust where that efficiency rating is going up as it runs. So if that does happen, please don't be alarmed. Just go ahead and kind of wait it out, turn that smoke alarm off. It will, again, as that efficiency ratings goes up, it's going to stop doing that. Below that, we have a couple 15 amp receptacles. Again, nothing too crazy. These are going to be GFI protected, and we already went through the procedure on resetting those if necessary. Hopping up here to your air conditioner. Now, all your controls for your air conditioner are going to be directly on the unit itself. We are going to have a low fan option, a high fan option, and then a low cool and a high cool option. Our indicator is going to be this guy here, and we can go ahead and turn that to our desired setting. If we go ahead and rotate it back, it's going to be off. Now, we do have a thermostat here within the unit, or a setting within the setting, so to speak, that will allow us to kind of fine tune that to our comfort level. Now, this does have washable filters in it. You're going to see these kind of grating on each side. What we're going to do is we're going to put our fingers here, kind of pull that out of the way. Now, once we've done so, you're going to be staring at a netted filter that's going to be removed in a similar fashion, very easy to do so. That is a washable filter. So we're going to rinse that out in the sink. We're going to give it enough time to dry, and then we can go ahead and put that back in, back where it goes. Now, you're also going to find kind of louvers here on each side. It's going to allow you to direct where you want that cold air to be pushed. If it's a hot summer night, you may close this one down, have all that air going into the sleeping space. Other than that, very easy, very simple to use, and it is a very efficient air conditioner for the space. So here we have your kind of multimedia center, your TV and stereo. Standard 12-volt TV, which is nice because that's going to give you access to that if you're kind of off-grid, running off the battery. So what we can do is we're going to pull that out. We can really position that depending on where we're sitting within the camper. If we're in bed, we can watch it that way too. Now, with that TV kind of pulled out of the way, we're going to expose your antenna booster here. Now, we talked about the outside connections to feed either a park cable service or our aftermarket satellite to the unit. That's where these are going to terminate. They are labeled there on the faceplate. That red light you see there, that's going to be your how you turn on your antenna booster. On the roof here, you're going to find a digital over-the-air omnidirectional antenna. What that does is, of course, if that red light's on, we can go ahead and do a channel search through the TV. It will automatically seek out the best signal and bring in programming dependent on that signal. Now, if we are taking advantage of the inlets that we found there on the outside, it's important to note that that red light would need to be on. That's going to allow that cable signal to bleed through the line and allow you, again, to use a park cable service. Other than that, very straightforward use there of that television. If we take a look down low here at the Furon system, that's going to be a kind of a standard setup. So you have your on-off button there. We have our zones here. So zones 1 and 2, we saw those outside speakers. Those are going to be zone 2. Our inside speakers here are going to be zone 1. We have our play, pause button, stop, seek, find, our Bluetooth button here. And then lastly is going to be our mode button here. So that's going to allow us to feed an auxiliary in, 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, USB, things like that. Of course, if we're watching a DVD, we're going to put it right there in the slot, as well as a CD, volume control here. Again, very kind of basic standard head unit. So here we have your 12-volt Fantastic fan. This is going to be in the locked and stowed position going down the road. What that means is before we open it, we need to pull this handle down. That's going to unlock it. And then we just go ahead and rotate that. That's going to open up that vent. We have 4 speed controls here. So we have, again, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That really actually picks up quite a bit of speed and will move quite a bit of air. This is an exhaust fan, so the idea being is that you're going to open up these windows on either side of the sleeping area here. And what that's going to allow you to do is kind of take advantage of the nice cross breeze that this will create. And then we push the off button here, and before going down the road, we want to make sure we do close that vent and return that handle into that locked position by pushing up. So here we have your convenience center. A couple things you're going to be using this for. Number 1 is going to be the level of your tanks. If you go ahead and push those buttons, the button to the corresponding tank, The more lights you see is going to indicate the level of full. So battery we can see is full. Anytime we're plugged into shore power, that battery will read full. To get a true readout of where that battery is, we're going to need to unplug and then test from this location. Our freshwater tank is just about half full. Our black water tank is empty, and our gray water tank is empty as well. So you see the scale here. The more lights you see, the fuller that particular thing that we are testing is. Water pump switch here, that's how we're going to pressurize the unit. We're going to draw that water up from the tank to the fixtures and make it usable on a lighted switch, so you know if it is on. And then we have a main switch for our living room lights. We can see those correspond. Now keep in mind that each fixture on the overhead lights does have its own on-off switch, so you can control which lights come on and off with this main switch. Our porch light switch is going to be for that amber colored light that we saw there on the exterior of the unit. Also keep in mind that the light itself does have a switch on the actual fixture. Again, you can choose whether you control it from this location or outside. Our awning lights, so this is a generic panel. You not only have two awning switch, but you have two awning light switches. If you want to go ahead and add a side awning down the road, you surely can do so with this panel. For our purposes, awning 2 is going to be what we're focusing on. This is going to be the lights for that. Also, our switch is for the awning 2 as well, which is going to be the rear awning in our case. Now this is a momentary switch. We can kind of choose how far we run that awning out, follow the sun in the sky if we choose to do so, but again, very easy to use. So what we have here is going to be your emergency exit for this kind of living room area. Now keep in mind you do have a secondary emergency exit on the driver's side of the cab over. When it does come to operating this emergency exit, you're going to go ahead and lift both of these handles into the upward position. That's going to allow that window to come full out like a doggy door, and again allowing you to safely exit the unit from this location if your entry door is blocked. So that just about covers it here on the 2021 Palomino 8801. We really hope you enjoyed the walkthrough. If there's something we might have missed or you do have any questions, feel free to give us a call or a comment below. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.